When you think about your favorite brands, like what pops into your head visually, chances are the colors they use are a huge part of that. That instant recognition, the feeling you get.
Absolutely. Color is so fundamental to that connection.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into something really interesting, a color approach that feels, well, supernatural and timeless. We're talking about a sand-inspired palette.
Ooh, I like that. Grounded.
Exactly. Forget those trends that come and go. This is about those warm, sort of earthy hues that can build a visual identity with real, staying power.
Yeah, makes sense.
So our mission today is to explore the actual shades in this palette. We're digging into insights from BrandCanvasStudio to really understand how these, seemingly simple colors communicate so much.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because sand-inspired colors, they have this almost primal connection for us.
How so?
Well, you see these colors in landscapes that have been around forever, right? Millennia. So they just inherently carry the sense of stability, familiarity. It's not just about looking nice. It's really about tapping into those deep associations we all have. So yeah, let's break down these shades and see how they build this this powerful but still subtle visual language.
Okay, great. Let's start at the light end, pale sand. The hex code is hashtag FAF3E3.
Right.
BrandCanvasStudio describes it as a light, soft cream. And you immediately get that feeling, don't you? Like an open, airy space.
Yeah, it's like a visual breath of fresh air, as you said.
Yeah.
Think of it as the quiet backdrop.
Okay.
The kind that lets the main subject really stand out. Its power is kind of in its neutrality.
So using it as a base.
Exactly. Use pale sand as your base, you get spaciousness, and then other things like darker text or maybe brighter little accents, they really grab your attention. So the suggestion from BrandCanvasStudio, using it for large backgrounds, makes total sense, establishing that clean foundation.
Gotcha. Okay, moving slightly warmer, we have soft ivory, hashtag F5EAD1. This one's described as a warmer off-white, but with a subtle depth. It sounds like it offers a bit more visual interest without losing the lightness.
Yeah, and that warmth is interesting psychologically.
How do you mean?
Well, while it still feels clean, maybe sophisticated, that little hint of ivory warmth can feel a bit more inviting, maybe less clinical than a stark white or even the pale sand.
Right, okay.
BrandCanvasStudio points out it's good for highlights or maybe minimalistic designs. It's about adding this layer of gentle contrast. Catches the eye, but it's not jarring. Creates more nuanced feel.
Like the difference between bright morning light and that softer afternoon glow you mentioned earlier.
Exactly that, a subtle shift.
Okay, next up is golden beige, hashtag E6D5B8. This one promises a touch of warmth, radiance, brings a richness, but apparently without being too loud.
Yeah, not overpowering.
It's like finding that little fleck of gold in the sand, subtle, but it's definitely there.
That's a perfect analogy. It's about adding that touch of maybe understated luxury.
Ah, okay.
It's not the boldness of pure gold, but more of a muted, earthy kind of glow. BrandCanvasStudio notes it works well for accenting things like headers or logos.
I can picture that.
Yeah, imagine a website, light sand background maybe, and then headers in this golden beige. It gives you this immediate sense of subtle quality, draws your eye right to the key navigation bits.
Nice. Okay, moving on to sun-kissed tan, hashtag D9C4A5. The name itself kind of says it all, right?
Yeah.
Warmth, outdoors.
Totally. Makes you think of summer.
BrandCanvasStudio says it adds this natural, warm vibe. And it's ideal for elements that need to stand out, but gently. You know, like sand that's been baking in the sun.
Precisely. Or think about how your skin looks after a day at the beach, that sort of healthy, warm glow.
Yeah.
Sun-kissed tan kind of has that effect visually. They suggest it for things like text, maybe graphics. It's about making elements feel approachable, inviting, like a friendly hand reaching out.
Not shouting.
But warmly drawing you in. Exactly.
Okay, now we're getting a little deeper. Desert taupe, hashtag B8A589, described as a more earthy beige. Brings balance, grounding.
Yeah, this one feels more solid, like the earth beneath the shifting sand, as you put it.
Right.
It really acts as an anchor within those lighter tones we just talked about. Gives a sense of stability. BrandCanvasStudio mentions it's good for maybe more serious branding applications.
Like logos, business cards.
Yeah, exactly. Things like that.
Okay.
This color communicates reliability, trustworthiness, but without feeling heavy or, overly formal. It's like the visual version of a firm handshake. Solid.
I like that. Then there's warm driftwood, hashtag A4937A. This one's interesting. It brings in that sort of rustic wood-like quality.
Yeah, even though it's just a flat color.
Right, it adds an organic texture feel. Makes you think of weathered wood, smoothed by the sea.
And what's cool about this shade is how it evokes that tactile sensation, right?
Totally.
Even without actual texture, the name, the color association, it creates that feeling of natural wood. BrandCanvasStudio points out it's versatile too, works with light and deep shades, a good connector.
And they suggest it for call to action buttons.
Yeah, which is smart. It adds that bit of natural warmth that can make clicking something feel a bit more inviting than, say, a stark blue button.
Yeah, less digital, more human.
Kind of, yeah. More approachable.
Okay, deeper still. Beach clay, hashtag 87962, a rich, earthy color, offering more significant depth, contrast.
Right, like damp sand near the water's edge.
Exactly.
So this is where the palette really starts to ground itself properly. Beach clay gives you substantial contrast. That lets you create a really clear visual hierarchy in your designs.
Makes sense.
BrandCanvasStudio suggests it for subtle accents, maybe borders, icons. Think about how a darker border can frame lighter content, draws your eye, creates definition.
Right.
It adds this sense of like rugged authenticity, something that's stood the test of time.
Okay, last one. The deepest shade. Deep sandstone, hashtag 756652.
The anchor.
This is the darkest, providing that essential grounding, strong contrast, like shadows on dunes at twilight.
Nice image. Yeah, this is your power color for emphasis when you need something to really pop. BrandCanvasStudio rightly flags it for headings, important text, calls to action. This deep, earthy tone, it really commands attention, provides a sense of finality, maybe.
Yeah.
It's the visual equivalent of a strong, confident voice, making sure key messages absolutely land.
Okay, so we've walked through all 8 shades, but stepping back, why choose this entire sand-inspired spectrum? BrandCanvasStudio mentioned versatility, timelessness, natural elegance, but what's the secret sauce here?
Well, I think the real power is in its inherent harmony.
Harmony.
Yeah, because these colors are all drawn from the natural world, right? They just naturally complement each other. So you get this visual experience that feels really cohesive, balanced, but not, forced.
Yeah.
And that timelessness BrandCanvasStudio talks about, it comes from that connection to enduring landscapes. You're avoiding those flash-in-the-pan color trends and building something that lasts.
It feels like it would be particularly good for certain types of brands, maybe, like hospitality, wellness, where you want calm approachability.
Oh, absolutely. Think about a spa wanting to evoke tranquility, or maybe a sustainable fashion brand that's all about natural materials. These colors just align perfectly with those kinds of values. But as BrandCanvasStudio also points out, it's broader than that. It appeals to anyone looking for that natural, understated aesthetic.
A sophisticated alternative.
Exactly. To bolder, more saturated palettes, it's about conveying quality, authenticity without being flashy or loud about it.
Okay, so we get the why. Now, the how. How do we actually use this palette effectively? Starting with branding. BrandCanvasStudio had some tips.
Yeah, for branding, it's all about creating that visual hierarchy we talked about, one that reflects your brand's priorities. So like BrandCanvasStudio suggests, maybe use the lighter ones, pale sand, soft ivory for your main background. Set that clean stage.
Okay.
Then you strategically layer in the warmer midtones like golden beige or desert taupe for your logo, key text, create that focal point.
And the deep ones.
Right? Save beach clay, deep sandstone for those really crucial elements, calls to action, maybe key highlights. Make sure they stand out and guide the viewer's eye.
That layered approach makes a lot of sense. What about translating this online? Website design specifically?
Oh, it's beautiful online. The beauty here is creating that seamless, inviting user experience. BrandCanvasStudio's example was good. A soft sand base.
Right.
Desert taupe for headers. Warm driftwood for icons. It paints this clear picture of a site that feels both airy and grounded.
Welcoming.
Totally. It creates a sense of welcome, encourages people to explore, makes the whole online thing feel less transactional, maybe more engaging.
And lastly, social media. It's so fast-paced, visually noisy.
Yeah, and that's actually where this palette can shine by being different.
How so?
By being subtly sophisticated. In that noisy feed, if you consistently use these warm, natural tones in your posts, graphics, banners, like BrandCanvasStudio advises you cultivate this distinct visual identity.
Calming, trustworthy.
Exactly. It can help your brand cut through the clutter, not by shouting louder, but by offering this sense of calm. Build a more meaningful connection.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up, this sand-inspired palette, Drawing on what BrandCanvasStudio laid out, it gives us warmth, depth, that timeless elegance, and a real connection to nature.
Yep, a really strong foundation.
For any brand looking to create a visual identity that really resonates.
Precisely. And it's a good reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the most impactful choices are the ones that feel the most natural, the most enduring. These colors, they have stories baked into them.
Yeah.
And when you use them intentionally, thoughtfully, they can communicate so much about your brand's values, its personality.
It really does highlight how even those, seemingly subtle color choices can have such a profound impact on how we perceive a brand, connect with it across everything they do.
Absolutely.
And it definitely makes you wonder, beyond this beautiful sand palette, what other natural palettes are out there? Holding equally compelling stories, maybe untapped potential for how we communicate visually in the future.
That's a great question to ponder. Lots to explore there.